Welcome to Mindfully Integrative Podcast with your host, Dr. Damaris G. Mindfully Integrative is a podcast discussing ways toward mindfully incorporating integrative health into our lives. This podcast will have informative resources, fun topics, interviews, and discussions relatable for today with a true mindful perspective in a mind-body, holistic life approach.
Hi, how are you? This is Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, and this is the Mindfully Integrative Show. And today we have a wonderful guest doing a mindful chat. Her name is Dr. Marnie Hill-Federo, and she has years of experience as an author, as a teacher, as a speaker, and an educator. So there's many things that she is going to speak with you. And I love just her website alone is God Came to My Garage Sale. So I want you to know and find more about her because she also has written many of books. So thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Marnie.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, I really appreciate it. So as I kind of tell those on the show, just a little fun fact that someone may not know about you, because you are, postdoctoral Harvard, you've done so much. You're educated, highly educated, and also well-renowned. So please talk to those in the about your story and just a small little fun fact before we go into it.
Let's see, a fun fact about me, because I really have put a lot out there. I would say now that I have moved to the Caribbean.
Well, that's cool. Where in the Caribbean are you?
I'm in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
That sounds beautiful.
I've lived here for 3 years, but never in my life would I think that I would be skilled at catching boa constrictors. What? So we have, and they're not native to our island, but we certainly have them here in abundance. And even though they're not venomous, which is nice, they still can bite and of course constrict. And it's just no fun to have a snake around your house. So I have gotten pretty good at catching boa constrictors.
Oh my, do you have do you have like a wrangler, like a thing,
I have, we call them snake tongs.
Oh my God.
Because where I live is on many acres in the rainforest, we have numerous snake tongs in various locations. So that, if I come across one, I can catch it. And, there are a couple people on the island that are interested in having them as a like dinner, but I also call the DPNR guy. We call him the snake whisperer, but he comes in from St. Croix snakes and gets them because he collects the data and researches them and, trying to help eradicate them from our island. But anyway, that's my fun fact. We have
that's a pretty big one. Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually caught, so we've had 20 in the 3 years.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a fun fact. I guess I don't know how
in the
fun
house?
we keep our doors closed. But they're definitely right around. They enjoy our gardens and our birds and
my. Oh no. Oh my
gosh. That's my fun fact.
Oh, that you moved to the islands to be more relaxed. I don't know. That's a lot there.
I'm okay. I appreciate nature. I think that, being in nature is just so very healing on so many different levels. So, yeah.
So let's talk about you. You have a wealth of, history and, this show is really about integration of health and your journey, obviously as an educator. And so how, let's talk about your story and how you've kind of come to where you are now.
Sure. Well, just, without going into too much detail, because I have talked about my story and what has led me to write my books. But in keeping with integrative health, which, I really support, especially just natural ways of healing yourself. One thing I'd like to point out is so many people don't realize that if we have surrounded ourselves, whether we know it or not, with toxic individuals or toxic situations, that stress can manifest itself in your body and could, where you end up with, physical ailments or autoimmune diseases. And of course, so many so many responses are, oh, pop a pill for this, pop a pill for that, when really there are so many other things that you can do. And one of them is realizing, taking a look at yourself and look at your life and look at your relationships, your family, your partnerships, your neighbors, your work colleagues. Look at situations and people, really do some reflection and try to decide how healthy these relationships or situations are. Because you might find that some of them are not as healthy as you think, where you could be trauma bonded with another person because you've known them for years and you just always thought they had your back. Or, you might wake up one day and find evidence to show that, the person you are in a partnership with doesn't have the same values as you do, with regards to honesty or fidelity or, money or whatever it is. And so, you've got to make some very tough decisions about whether to stay or go, or how to, alter your interaction so that you are in a healthy state mentally. And I had to do that. And as a result, I left a marriage after 27 years. I left my American dream, which really was myself living in a false reality with regards to what I thought I was living. Definitely my career as a teacher, that was the real deal. And I really enjoyed that and saw that through till I retired. Oh. But I did have to make some decisions, and they were really hard decisions. And even after you make those initial decisions, there's a lot of repercussions and fallout that come sometimes years after you make these decisions. And then you have to kind of reanalyze where you are at with some people in your life or situations in your life, and make another round of possible changes just to kind of protect yourself. But I will say, is as tough as that, I would say, emotional, spiritual healing journey was, and there's a lot of losses and there's a lot of pain. When you can get through that and come out the other side, you'll find that emotionally and physically, you are in optimum health. And, so it really, no one else can really do this for you. You have to do this for yourself. Yeah. Listen to podcasts, read some books, get some ideas, talk to different people. But the final choice is really yours and how you want to conduct your life. And I'm just, I'm so glad I've always had a positive outlook. I've always believed that love and compassion and knowledge can really steer us in a positive way. And so I had a foundation that really was conducive to helping me make some of these big changes. But it's in midlife that I'm doing this. I was just going along, my whole life.
Right. Wow. And you've wrote 5 books, correct? Is that correct?
I have written 6 books.
6 books.
Yeah. The first book is a spiritual fiction called God Came to My Garage Sale.
So that's where your first book came. Is that
is the first book after losing everything, this character.
6 books. Amazing.
She has to have a garage sale and some spiritual miracles happen. And
because you're you're a spiritual teacher, you're a high school, you have such an array of, I think you have so much to tell people, Well, but half hour is not going to be enough. We're going to have
it's a journey. We all have a journey, and sometimes we're compelled to share our journey because not only it's healing for us, but it's also healing for other people. They can find inspiration. This is just one. This is the first book of my 5-book series called True Deceit, False Love. And in that, I didn't plan on writing that 5-book series. In fact, after I wrote the first book, and even though it was prominently endorsed by people in the abuse recovery community, I went on to write within a very short time 4 other books related to this. And it's to bring awareness in a very general way to
Yeah.
domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, parental alienation, which is a devastating form of domestic violence.
Can you go into a little conversation? I mean, domestic
Sure.
violence in itself can be significant, or intimate partner violence.
Sure.
And
Yes.
is it intimate partner?
Yes, that's what it's called, intimate partner violence.
Violence, right? And the trauma from that in itself is just,
and it happens to both men and women. So it is not a gender specific situation. But you wanted me to elaborate a little on parental alienation, and that.
Well, I mean, I didn't, I think the combination of, the IPV or whichever you'd like to talk about, because I'm here to try to highlight and discuss ways that you've been able to transition, right? So that trauma, those things you've written, and now you're able to talk about this, because I can only imagine, unfortunately, how many, I mean, you've done your research on, what is it, 1 in 4 or have some sort of abuse?
Yeah, I actually put it on my website. There are numerous statistics. And actually, because
unfortunately, 1 in 4.
June 1st was National Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. Just kind of like there's a Hallmark holiday for anything. There's lots of these different issues end up having a day of awareness, because it really needs to be something that's more readily available for people to understand and maybe connect the dots to their own experience. And they might realize, wow, I am in the middle of this. Because one of the hallmarks of being in an abusive situation, and it's not just from my personal experience, but from a lot of research that I have done, is that so many times we don't know we're in it while we're in it. And it's when you finally have the straw that breaks the camel's back, or, some big revelation, some big trauma, where you then remove yourself from that situation just for your own safety. It's then that you realize, wow, there were so many red flags along the way that I did not pay attention to, and that many people don't pay attention to. And just like people that have had near-death experiences, they have flatlined and, survived their medical trauma, but they have experienced something that is just unbelievable. And there are thousands of accounts that are very, very similar that people have experienced. The same is true with just emotional family trauma. It can be so devastating. I mean, it was devastating for me to leave a 27-year marriage, something that I thought would be forever. But at the same time, I almost didn't have a choice after some of the things that I learned. And so I did make a choice. I suppose I could have stayed in it, and I was pretty much threatened to stay in it. But I knew that wouldn't be healthy for me, nor would I be role modeling positive behavior for my adult children. But unfortunately, I lost my adult children due to parental alienation. So they were older when this happened.
So so they completely alienated you?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, it's
I hope at some point hope at some point you're able to reconnect.
Every targeted mom or dad has hope, but the reality is that the brainwashing and the false narrative that's been, and the control and manipulation, whether it's through money, threats, control of their electronics and their bills, that type of thing, lots of times these adult children, even if they realize there's parental alienation and they see good versus evil, they sometimes don't want the stress of having to make a change, because it's extremely stressful in their lives to be like this. But if you know of a child, a young or adult child that thinks that everything is black and white, there's one good parent and one terrible parent, and if they have not communicated with that one parent they believe is terrible, for the most part, that could be the loving, targeted parent that was just cut off as a means from the other parent to destroy that parent. They want revenge. Unfortunately, in our world, we have to deal with malevolent people and people that just don't always have the best interest. They will even sacrifice the well-being of their own children, to hurt.
I unfortunately can relate to on my mother. She had, my father was in that narcissistic, category, but she stayed with him all the way until, he got sick. And, I would say now, she reflects on the years of, she was there 50 years in it.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about it but she's still not able to, I guess, get through that.
But it's also a different generation. Your mother is older than we are. And we actually have platforms where we can get information about it or
she did not. No,
get support. Right.
Yeah. So it was definitely a challenge for her. I feel for her. I mean, for us too, but I had years of therapy there. I learned my, I learned my techniques. That's hence why I started this show, because I feel like things need to be talked about, and we need to talk about conversations without feeling like a pill is going to be a conversation or everyone just has mental health. And it's like, all right, there's more underlying. Everyone needs to have, conversations and figure out better ways to be healthier, and
actually just our conversation, in this podcast can reach one person, and that could change the trajectory of how they choose to handle what they're going through. And chances are there's a ripple effect, because, there are so many people like you and I that believe in goodness, believe in our natural bodies, believe in the wonder of the world and positivity, and how, really our thoughts can control all sorts of things.
I 100% agree.
So we're spreading the word. So we're creating that ripple effect, I believe.
Oh, I hope so. Every one, person on here and one conversation, I hope someone listens, right? And they're having that and knowing that they're not alone,
Yeah.
I know that if you want to talk about one of the books or a story within your a little bit more on your story, it's completely up to you, how you'd like to go further. But I know that you have a wealth of things to discuss. So,
Well, I'm open to talk about whatever you're interested in talking about. I just want to provide inspiration and hope to your viewers and listeners that they are not alone. And in whatever they are going through, even if they don't completely resonate with the topics that I discuss, they might have their own situation in a workplace environment, or with something with health, or something with money. We all have challenges, but we have the power to choose to respond a certain way. And we need to all take time to do more reflection, and meditation is extremely helpful. I will say that I struggled with meditation for the longest time. I had so much clutter in my mind, and it was really hard to settle down, to just kind of, have like a blank slate to try to reflect. And sometimes there are people that can benefit from guided meditations where they actually follow someone else's direction and that type of thing. But I also find being in nature, which even when I spent a lifetime in the Chicago suburbs, I loved the seasons. I loved the prairie. I loved the Midwest, landscape. I feel like I'm someone that could be planted anywhere in the world and I could find beauty in it. I'm so fortunate, though, to be in the Caribbean, because it's a different type of beauty that, I can actually immerse myself in, like get into the ocean every day and, take a walk in the rainforest every day. And that really is grounding for me.
Oh, I can imagine how grounding it is. You're really one with the earth.
But even if you are in the heart of the city, or in the suburbs, or on the West Coast or the East Coast, or wherever you are, you can still find beauty in the world. Even if it's through looking out a window, you can still find beauty. But I would say to your viewers and listeners, instead of listening to like a lot of specific stories that I have, you have the power within you to create the world you want to be the change that you want to see in the world. That famous quote. we have the power to take control of our lives. And sometimes, though, it means making some hard choices about leaving these certain toxic kind of situations and people behind.
Wow. You had gone through so much. What was like your turning point for you? Was it just that, pivotal point that was just like, okay, this was enough for myself?
Yeah.
And then you said, okay, I have to change.
Yeah, I would say I definitely had a defining moment where, I was just a regular day out for pizza with my husband and one of my children. And I don't think it was intentional, but there were confessions made and wrongdoings exposed. And, if it was earlier on, I might have just brushed it off like I have always done.
Right,
but you know what? It came to a point where I had connected so many dots that it was enough. And actually, I became very scared. And because abusers do instill fear
of course,
by what they do, that's kind of part of how they're able to control and manipulate. But I guess that was my turning point. But really, it had been building for years and years and years. And then, of course, after when I realized that parental alienation was part of this, where my loving relationship with my kids and, so many of us parents, moms and dads, our lives revolve around our kids. We spend years and years raising them and trying to instill good values and giving them great experiences and helping them to try to launch and be their own people. And it seemed like for many, many years, I was kind of fighting an opposite view of that type of thing, but I was still plugging along. But when you realize that, you've been alienated from your children, almost like a cult, like brainwashing, it's just shocking. It's just to your core. And you try all sorts of things to reach out the normal way, visits, gifts, phone calls, texts, emails, whatever. And then at times with some real severe cases, abusers will even legally prevent you from connecting with your children, whether it's through orders of protection or whatever it is, where you don't even have a choice unless you want to, risk, an arrest or something like that, even though it's all based on lies and false information. Abusers will use the court systems whenever they can. They will continue and they will obsess over you. Even a decade after you have escaped their control, you can be slapped with more legal things.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it happens so much. So many people.
You've overcome so much. Like I don't want to, think the now where you have come, like, so that turning point. How do you feel now that you've transitioned and you've kind of come on the other side? How are you feeling? How are you doing? And what has been your best way of like healing?
Well, that's a great question. Multifaceted, but very great question.
You could put it in one point. It's up to you.
No, but I have come a long way, but I still think that anyone who has been through what I have been through or anything similar, you still have to remain vigilant. You still have to pay attention because, like I said, these abusers are obsessive and, they are constantly plotting yet another way to get at you. And of course, we read such devastating headlines at times with regards to a spouse murdering the other spouse or their own children just to in their sick, twisted way of revenge. So I think that, you always, and I think I will always be on a healing journey and I will always have to be vigilant. And, in my case, my abuser has shown me that it doesn't matter if it's been almost a decade, they will continue, so I think that's being vigilant is something, unfortunately, we still have to deal with. And the truth, though, eventually comes out. I mean, with anything, it seems the truth eventually prevails. But I would say, I've been very fortunate because of where I was at the stage in my professional life that I was close to retirement. And so that's something like so many other people have been convinced to quit their jobs or go on disability or, be completely dependent on their abuser, so that they feel like they have no way out. So I had some things working in my favor. I also, a very close friend of mine that I enjoyed being around and traveled a lot with. He is now my life partner. And so he really gets it. So I have found love and happiness again, without even looking for it. At all, because so many people that experience domestic violence end up in yet another domestic violence situation with similar personality disordered individuals, because that is what they know. But it's important to do, like I said, the deep dive and look into your own family interactions and generational traumas and what kind of molded you into an over empath or an over giver or someone that would tolerate, be a good target for an abuser.
You're being a good person, but it is they almost look for the ones that are the most sympathetic and the most loving, right? It's like,
right. You are
definitely, psychology will show you. And unfortunately, I wish it wasn't like that, but
you are definitely chosen before they're out. It's like a predator and a prey. They really are looking for the weakest link. And not that you are a weak individual. You're just someone who has had some other kinds of losses and traumas that they will capitalize on. And so it's just, it's very hard for good, loving, sane, healthy people to think like a criminal, because that's not how we are wired. We're not
right. That is not how we were taught. That's not who we are.
Yeah. And you know what? I still believe, though, even after everything that I have gone through and so much that I have read that so many other people have gone through, I still believe in honesty and goodness and goodwill towards others. And I'm a little more discerning about who I let in my life. Or who I keep in my life. But that setting up is like a healthy boundary.
The boundaries. I was just about to say boundaries.
It's not about them. Like boundaries. If I chose, like there's some people in my life that I have chosen I do not want in my life. It is not bringing me joy, happiness. I see so many of the similar abusive tactics. It's not for me. But if I have made some of those choices, it's not that I don't love those people, even a family member. It's not that I don't love them, and will always hold a special place in my heart. But the reality is that I can't subject myself to more and more abuse, because I need to value myself. No one else will do that for me except myself. So
I could not agree with you more. I think it's even more important for people to value themselves. I don't think that we have, not everyone, I guess, as empaths or those sensitive ones, we're not willing to look and say, it's okay. I very much so appreciate you being on the show. I mean, there's so much more I think we could even dive into with the trauma and the domestic violence issue. But would you like to leave the audience before you go with a small tip of your healing, or prior to that, or would you like to discuss a little bit of your career as a school teacher?
Well, my career as a school teacher was just one of the most enjoyable things.
Because you were in Chicago area, right?
I was in the Chicago suburbs, and I taught for 35 years, mostly at the high school level. And one thing just about how I was as a teacher, I wasn't someone that, stood up in front of the class imparting facts and knowledge. I was the kind of teacher that looked at each individual.
An adjunct professor. Sorry about that. Also.
Well, I was a high school teacher for 35 years, and 12 of those years I was an adjunct graduate school professor. And actually in both different venues with different age groups, I did more about looking at individual people as learners and trying to give them the permission to explore and investigate on their own. That, people can present information to you, but you need to do some critical thinking on your own. And that's where some real learning comes.
Oh.
And so that's the kind of teacher that I was. But as far as just to impart any final thoughts for your audience, I would really just say, you are a loving, beautiful human being, and, stay true to your values and your integrity. And it is a very healthy practice. And hopefully you don't have to go through trauma that will induce this, but that you could take a look at your life and make some decisions about all sorts of things, who you want to spend time with, who are people in your life that you should maybe go no contact with or low contact, who are people that you are drawn to be with, and maybe, move towards that. Look at where you are living and make some decisions. Hey, is this where I want to spend the rest of my life? Or should I go explore some other options for myself? People need to look at their careers or their jobs and ask themselves if it's fulfilling. Now, of course, I know many of us have to have our day jobs or whatever, but our 9 to 5 or whatever it's called, because we need to put food on the table. But at the same time, we should give ourselves permission to explore some other options, because, money isn't everything. Buying this or that or living here or there isn't everything, and I learned that the hard way when I lost everything after leaving my marriage after 27 years. I had so much safety and security, but it was all false. And so you never know how strong you can be until you're put into a situation. But I just want to leave your audience with hope that, they can make changes in their lives, and that's okay. And it's okay to put yourself first. It's not a selfish thing by any means. It's kind of like put your oxygen mask on first and then help the person next to you.
And it's so hard for some of us to see that. I mean, I know just as as you're as an educator, me as a provider of health, like we almost don't want to do that, or even as moms, right? And you almost like you're instilled to kind of not realize that you have to help yourself, because you can't help anyone if you're not available, if you're not able.
Right. And you want to encourage others to help themselves, so like one thing with my adult children, I always try to instill self-sufficiency, follow your own passions. Don't rely on everyone, where, abusers want the opposite. They want you dependent. They want to take away your freedoms. And they want you to be happy, even though you are stifled and you can't grow to be the person that you are meant to be. So, there's a lot of hope for all of us. We just need to stay true to our positive values and make some decisions about our lives.
You are so versed in what you say, and I appreciate your time. I would love for the audience to be able to reach you. I know your first book is God Came to My Garage Sale. Would you recommend them to read that as your first book? And how can they reach you otherwise?
Sure. Well, actually, I'm not on social media because I wanted to spend more time in nature and enjoying my island as well as writing. But I do have a website, which is www.godcametomygarage.com. And there you can read about me. You could read about the various books, the 6 books I've written myself, as well as the 5 books that I have co-authored as part of anthologies. You can, under the happenings section, you can tune into this podcast or many other podcast interviews that I've done, as far as magazine articles I've written or book signings and that type of thing. So, my website is the best place to reach you, to check things out. And then my books are all on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I'm with Balboa Press which is a division of Hay House.
Hay House. Oh,
Publishing.
wonderful.
Yeah, so that's who I am with. So you can even go
great.
on that website and check out the books. And if money is tight for you, which it is for a lot of people right now, e-versions of the books are $3.99 online. So
Well,
some libraries are carrying the books now. And, my book is in bookstores all across the nation and Europe and the Caribbean. So.
Well, I am so grateful for, your spiritual teachings, your time, and kind of bringing a little bit of faith and love to like others, like so that they can have a little hope, wherever they are in their journey, whether it's, in the beginning of their stage or they just need to hear a little bit of positivity. So thank you so much again for your time.
Well, and thank you for what you do and for having this wonderful platform. The Mindfully Integrative platform is just fantastic. It makes so much sense, especially now. So thank you for what you are doing. And I am glad you saw value in what I'm doing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you again. And those watching, like I said to you, make sure you find a mindful way each and every day, and you have a beautiful day, whether it's a day or night. Thanks again, and we'll talk with you soon. Enjoy the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Mindfully Integrative Show with Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, family nurse practitioner. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not the substitute for professional medical advice, diagnose, or treat. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your healthcare routine. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please support us by leaving a mindful review on Apple Podcast or your favorite streaming platform. Interested in being a guest or more information? Email us at info@mindfullyintegrative.com. For resources mentioned in the show, visit our website at www.mindfullyintegrative.com. You can also connect mindfully with Dr. Damaris on her social media links found on the site. May your strength and peace guide you to find a mindful way every day. Namaste.